On the night the snow locked Weston inside, when the wind scratched the windows as if to remind that the past holds a master key to every door, a story began to unfold. And if you're listening from a quiet room, the bus bench, or a kitchen lit, at the end of the day, tell me silently where you're joining us from, because today we cross together the long road between fear and love. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream, that doesn't make a scene, that simply empties you out, one piece at a time, until you wake up one morning and realize you're hollow. Helena Santos knew that pain intimately. 6 months ago, she stood in a white dress that was never meant to be worn, in a church full of flowers no one would ever see, waiting for a man who never showed up. Her mother had flown in from Portugal, tears of joy already in her eyes. Her best friend Sarah had spent the night before braiding tiny pearls into Helena's hair, whispering about happily ever afters. 200 guests filled the pews, their perfumes mixing with the scent of lilies and roses. The organ played Pachelbel's canon, the notes swelling and falling like waves, and Derek never came. There was no explanation, no confrontation, no last-minute phone call, just a note, slipped under the bride's room door by a groomsman who couldn't meet her eyes. "I can't. Sorry." 2 words, an entire future erased. She remembered standing there, bouquet trembling in her hands, the white silk suddenly feeling like a costume, like she was playing a part in a play no one had told her was cancelled. The organist kept playing because no one had told him to stop. Her mother's face went pale, then red, then pale again. Sarah gripped her arm so tight it left bruises. "We'll find him," Sarah had whispered fiercely. "We'll make him explain." But Helena didn't want explanations. She wanted to disappear. And so she did. She left Ohio 3 weeks later with a single suitcase and a one-way ticket to anywhere that wasn't there. She spent 2 months in a cheap motel outside Cleveland, working as a waitress at a diner where the coffee was always burnt and the regulars never asked questions. She cut her long hair short, choppy, uneven, stopped wearing makeup, stopped looking in mirrors, became a ghost in her own life, because if no one could see her, no one could hurt her. Nathaniel Hawke also knew silent pain. His had a name and a face. Olivia. 18 months ago, she was alive, laughing at his terrible jokes, planning their daughter's first birthday party with the kind of joy that made everything feel possible. They had argued that morning about something stupid, something he couldn't even remember now. Vanilla. Cake or chocolate? He had kissed her forehead, still warm from sleep, and said, "We'll get both, problem solved." She had smiled, that smile that lit up every room she entered, and said, "This is why I married you." 3 days later, an aneurysm stole her life while she slept. No warning, no goodbye, no chance to say the 1,000 things he should have said. Just him, waking up next to a body that was no longer breathing in a bed that had become a tomb. He remembered the paramedics, their faces carefully neutral, trained not to show pity. The hospital, with its fluorescent lights too bright, too clinical, too indifferent to the fact that his world had just ended. The doctor, young, exhausted, saying words that didn't make sense. "I'm sorry. Nothing we could have done." Instantaneous. And Grace, 15-month-old. Grace, who kept asking, "Mama, Mama?" in her sweet, confused voice, her tiny hands reaching for a woman who would never hold her again, and he had no answer. The funeral was a blur of black suits and whispered condolences, hundreds of people, all saying the same useless things. "She's in a better place. Time heals all wounds, and you're so strong." He wasn't strong, he was hollow, a shell of a man going through the motions of living because his daughter needed him to, and for 18 months he stayed hollow, because feeling anything meant feeling everything, and he couldn't survive that. She wasn't looking for love. She was looking for survival. He wasn't looking for a nanny. He was looking for someone to care for his daughter while he pretended to be alive. Neither was prepared for what would happen when the winter snow locked them together. Neither knew that sometimes love doesn't ask for permission. It just happens. Even when you swear you'll never feel anything again. This isn't a story of love at first sight. It's a story about 2 people so broken they thought they'd never fit anywhere again, until they found each other, and suddenly the pieces began to make sense. Weston, Massachusetts, wasn't the kind of place Helena Santos imagined rebuilding her life. It was the kind of place where people had last names that opened doors and bank accounts that solved problems, where women wore pearls to the grocery store and men discussed stock portfolios over golf, where everyone knew everyone, and newcomers were studied like specimens under glass. Helena had an old suitcase held together with duct tape, a coat too thin for New England winter, and a resume that screamed desperate. She didn't belong here, but she needed that job. She needed something that made her wake up in the morning with a purpose beyond just surviving another day. The Hawke estate wasn't a home. It was a statement, stone and glass and architectural coldness that seemed to say, "You don't belong here and you never will." The driveway alone was longer than the street she grew up on. The fountain in the front, currently turned off for winter, probably cost more than her entire college education. The iron gates opened with an electronic sigh, as if the house itself was reluctant to let her in. The December air bit like tiny blades as she stepped out of the taxi, her breath coming out in white puffs. Her fingers trembled not just from the cold, but from the weight of her decision. This was it, her last chance. If this didn't work, she didn't know what she would do. The door opened before she could even ring. The belle Mrs. Doyle stood there in her 60s, grey hair pulled into a tight bun, eyes that seemed to see through the lies people told themselves. She didn't smile, just nodded. "Follow me." Her voice was crisp, British, the kind that made you straighten your posture without thinking. The hallways were a museum of silence. The air smelled of beeswax and lemon polish, and an ancient, settled loneliness. Expensive paintings hung on the walls, paintings Helena recognized from art history classes. A Monet, she thought, maybe a Renoir. Paintings worth millions, looked at by no one. Furniture no one used. Chairs with velvet cushions that looked like they'd never been sat in. A house that had forgotten what it meant to be a home. Helena's footsteps echoed on polished marble, each sound amplified by the emptiness, making her feel like an intruder. Mrs. Doyle led her through a sitting room with cream sofas and a crystal chandelier, then a library with floor-to-ceiling books that probably had never been read, their spines uncracked, their pages unturned. Then she entered the office and saw him, Nathaniel Hawke. He was the kind of man Forbes articles described as relentless and visionary. But words didn't capture what Helena saw. He was tall, easily 6'2", broad-shouldered, with dark hair streaked with silver at the temples, handsome in a way that was intimidating, sharp jawline, high cheekbones, the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers. But it wasn't his looks that made her stop, it was the absence. His blue eyes were like ice, beautiful, but empty, like someone had scooped out everything that made him human and left only the shell. He looked at her as if assessing a risky investment, his gaze cold and clinical, his scent woody and expensive, sandalwood maybe, with a hint of something. Darker filled the room, creating an invisible barrier between them. Miss Santos, his voice was deep, controlled, devoid of warmth. "Sit." Not, "Please sit." Not, "Have a seat." Just, "Sit." She sat. The leather chair was cold against her back, even through her coat. He wasted no time on pleasantries. "You're 28, never worked as a nanny. A substitute teacher from Ohio. Left that job 6 months ago. No relevant professional references." He closed the folder with a sharp snap. "Tell me why I shouldn't end this interview right now." Helena felt a cold anger rise within her, the kind that comes from months of being treated as if you're worthless. From being pitied, dismissed, forgotten. She could have given him the safe answer, the one she'd rehearsed on the train. Something about her passion for childcare, her flexibility, her eagerness to learn. But she was tired of safe answers. "Because you're not looking for a nanny with a perfect resume," she said, her voice firm. "You're looking for someone who stays, someone who doesn't run when your daughter cries in the middle of the night because she misses her mother. Someone who understands that sometimes what a child needs isn't in any manual." He leaned forward, his eyes finally focused on her, truly on her. For the first time she felt seen. "And you understand that because I know what it's like to lose everything in a second," she said, meeting his gaze. "And I know what it's like to wake up the next day and have to keep going. Your daughter needs someone who knows that life goes on, even when we don't want it to." The silence that followed was thick, heavy. She could hear the ticking of an antique clock on the mantel, the distant hum of the heating system, her own heartbeat, loud in her ears. He studied her, and for the first time she saw something flicker in his icy eyes, recognition, maybe even respect. "Grace is 15 months old," he said, his voice slightly softer. "She lost her mother 3 months ago. She doesn't Sleep well, she cries a lot. Mrs. Doyle helps, but she needs someone full-time, someone who... He stopped as if the words were difficult, as if admitting need was a weakness he couldn't afford. Someone who cares. I will care, Helena said, and it was the truest thing she had said in months. He nodded, a single decisive movement. You start tomorrow. Mrs. Doyle will show you to your room. Salary is $60,000 a year, plus room and board. Health insurance included. Any questions? $60,000. More than she'd ever made in her life. No questions, she managed. Good. 7 a.m. Don't be late. And just like that, the interview was over. He turned back to his computer, dismissing her without another word. The room they gave her was on the 3rd floor overlooking a snow-covered garden. It was beautiful but impersonal, like a high-end hotel room she could never afford. A queen-sized bed with crisp white linens, a mahogany dresser, a writing desk by the window, a private bathroom with marble counters and a clawfoot tub. It was the nicest room she'd ever slept in, and it felt like a prison. She unpacked her life in 20 minutes. There wasn't much. A few worn-out clothes that had seen better days, a handful of books, their pages dog-eared and loved, and a single photograph she'd almost thrown away 1,000 times, but never could. Derek, the man who had promised her forever, only to vanish 6 hours before their wedding. She stared at his smiling face in the photo. Blonde hair, blue eyes, the smile that had once made her heart race. It didn't hurt anymore. Now it was just nothing. And maybe, she thought, nothing was progress. She tucked the photo into a drawer, closed it firmly, and decided that Weston would be a new beginning, not a happy one, just a beginning. That first night, she couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet, too big. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind sounded like whispers. At 2 a.m., she gave up and went downstairs to the kitchen. The house was dark, lit only by the glow of security lights from outside, casting long shadows across the marble floors. She found the kitchen, a massive space with commercial-grade appliances and marble countertops, and made herself tea, chamomile, from a box she found in the pantry. She was sitting at the kitchen island, hands wrapped around the warm mug when she heard it. Crying, not loud, but persistent. A baby's cry, high and desperate. Grace. She hesitated. It wasn't her job yet. She didn't start until tomorrow. But the crying continued and no one else seemed to be coming. She climbed the stairs to the 2nd floor, following the sound. Grace's room was at the end of the hall, door slightly ajar. She pushed it open. The nursery was decorated in soft pastels, cream and lavender and pale yellow, a crib with a mobile of stars and moons, a rocking chair by the window, shelves full of toys that looked untouched, still in their packaging, and in the crib, Grace, standing, gripping the rails with tiny fists, her face red and tear-streaked. "Mama," she sobbed. "Mama, Mama, Mama." Helena's heart broke. She crossed the room and gently lifted the baby into her arms. Grace was warm, her little body trembling with sobs, her diaper damp, her pajamas twisted. "Shh," Helena whispered, rocking her gently. "Shh, sweetheart, it's okay, you're okay." Grace buried her face in Helena's shoulder, her cries slowly quieting to hiccups. Helena sat in the rocking chair and began to hum, a lullaby her grandmother used to sing when Helena was small. Portuguese words she barely remembered, but the melody was burned into her memory. Slowly, Grace's breathing evened out, her little fists unclenched, and she fell asleep, her head heavy on Helena's shoulder, her breath warm against Helena's neck. Helena didn't move. She just sat there, rocking, humming, feeling this tiny, broken heart beat against her own. And for the first time in 6 months, she felt something. Other than emptiness, she felt needed. She didn't know how long she sat there, maybe an hour, maybe more, but when she finally looked up, he was there. Nathaniel, standing in the doorway, watching. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes weren't empty anymore. They were full of something she couldn't name. "She hasn't slept through the night since..." He stopped, unable to finish. "The sentence." "I heard her crying," Helena said softly. "I hope it's okay that I..." "It's more than okay," he interrupted, his voice rough. "Thank you." He crossed the room and gently took Grace from her arms, careful not to wake her. For a moment their hands touched, just a brush of skin against skin, but it felt like an electric shock. He laid Grace in the crib, covering her with a soft blanket. his movements tender in a way that surprised Helena. Then he turned to her. "You start at 7, he said, "but if you want to sleep in tomorrow, given that you've been up half the night—" "7 is fine," she said. He nodded, and for a moment they just stood there, two broken people in a dark room with a sleeping baby between them. "Good night, Miss Santos." "Good night, Mr. Hawke." But as she walked back to her room, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, something small but significant, like the first crack in a frozen lake. Grace was a beautiful baby, dark, curly hair that framed her face like a halo, huge brown eyes that should have been full of wonder, chubby cheeks that should have been dimpled with smiles, but there was a sadness in her eyes that no 15-month-old should ever have. She didn't smile, she didn't babble. She just stared as if waiting for someone who would never come back. That first morning, Helena tried everything, toys, songs, peekaboo. Nothing worked. Grace just sat on the playroom floor, clutching a stuffed rabbit that was worn from being held, her eyes distant. Helena didn't force it. She simply sat beside her and started building. A tower of blocks, humming a soft tune her grandmother used to sing. She didn't push for eye contact, she just existed in the space with her. And slowly, so slowly, Grace turned her head, watched. Helena kept building. The tower grew taller. 1 block, 2 blocks, 3, and then with a tiny hand, Grace reached out, grabbed a block, placed it clumsily on the tower. It wobbled, but held. "Good girl," Helena whispered, her voice soft. And for the first time in weeks, something like a smile touched Grace's lips. It was small, barely there, but it was real. And Helena's own heart, frozen for months, felt a small, surprising thaw. The days fell into a rhythm. Wake at 6, Grace at 7. Breakfast, playtime, nap, to lunch, walk in the garden if the weather allowed. Another nap, dinner, bath, bedtime. It was simple, predictable, and for someone whose life had been chaos for months, it was exactly what Helena needed. But Nathaniel was a ghost, gone before dawn, back after midnight. When he was home, he was a closed door, a muffled phone call, the lingering scent of expensive cologne in a hallway. Helena started leaving him reports. Not the cold clinical kind he probably expected, but little stories. 2:30 p.m. Grace laughed today, a real high, free baby laugh. It was when Mrs. Doyle's cat wandered in. I think she likes animals. 5:20 p.m. I tried to give her broccoli. She threw it on the floor and looked at me as if I had personally insulted her. I think she inherited someone's stubbornness. 8:15 p.m. She fell asleep to Ella Fitzgerald. I think her mother had good taste in music. At first, he didn't respond. The notes simply vanished. Until one morning, she found a reply on the kitchen counter. "Thanks for the reports. Keep them coming." 3 words, but it was 3 more than she'd ever expected. The next day, she found another note. What kind of animals does she like? Helena smiled and wrote back. Cats, mostly. But she also got excited when we saw a squirrel in the garden. "I think we should get her a pet, maybe a kitten." His response came that evening. "I'll think about it." And so began their strange, silent conversation. Notes left on. Counters, questions and answers. A connection built on paper, because neither of them knew how to build it face to face. 2 weeks in, Mrs. Doyle invited Helena for tea. They sat in the kitchen, the housekeeper's domain, with delicate china cups and shortbread cookies that melted on the tongue. "So you're good for her," Mrs. Doyle said, stirring sugar into her tea. "For Grace, I mean." "Thank you," Helena said. "And for him." Helena looked up, surprised. Mrs. Doyle's eyes were sharp, knowing. "He's been dead since she died," the housekeeper said bluntly. "Oh, he walks and talks and goes to meetings, but he's not alive, not really." Helena didn't know what to say. "Olivia was special," Mrs. Doyle continued, her voice softening. "Kind, warm. The kind of woman who remembered everyone's birthday, who baked cookies for the mailman at Christmas, who made this cold house feel like a home." She took a sip of tea. "When she died, the light went out. Not just in him, in all of us." "I'm sorry," Helena said quietly. "Don't be sorry, just don't give up on him, or on this place. It needs life again." Helena wanted to say that she was just the nanny, that she wasn't here to fix anyone, that she had her own broken pieces to deal with. But instead, she just nodded, because maybe, just maybe, broken people could help each other heal. 3 weeks later, Helena realized she was fading. Not physically, but the part of her that laughed, that dreamed, that existed beyond diapers and lullabies. Weston was beautiful, but suffocating. So, on a Friday night, she did something impulsive. She took the train to Boston. The city was noise and life and everything Weston wasn't. Sirens and laughter and music spilling out of bars, people rushing past, wrapped in scarves and purpose. She wore the only nice dress she'd brought, a navy blue silk that hugged curves she'd forgotten she had. She let her brown hair down in loose waves, put on a touch of red lipstick, and for the first time in months, when she looked in the mirror, she recognized the woman staring back. Green eyes, finally with a spark in them, cheekbones she'd forgotten she had, a smile that didn't feel forced. She looked alive. The restaurant was called Lumiere, Amber Light, Live Jazz, and the scent of red wine and roasted garlic. The kind of place where conversations were whispered and secrets were shared. She asked for a table for one. The waiter looked at her with pity, but she didn't care. She was tired of being pitied. She ordered a glass of Merlot and pasta carbonara. The wine was smooth, warming her from the inside. The jazz was sultry, a saxophone weaving through the conversations around her. For the first time in months, she felt free. Not happy, exactly, but not drowning either. She was about to take her first bite of pasta when she saw him, at the bar, alone, a glass of whiskey in his hand and an expression on his face she knew all too well. The look of someone physically present, but mentally, a million miles away. Nathaniel Hawke. His tie was loose, his usually perfect hair slightly tousled. He'd rolled up his sleeves, exposing strong forearms. For the first time he looked human, not the relentless CEO, just a tired man. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and something happened, something neither of them could name. It wasn't love at first sight. It was recognition. Two lost souls, suddenly not feeling quite so alone. He stood, approached her table, and for the first time since she'd met him, he smiled. A small, almost hesitant smile, but it was real. "Helena," he said. Her name on his lips sounded different, less formal, more intimate. "Nathaniel," she replied, her heart beating faster than it should. "May I sit?" He seemed genuinely unsure, as if she might actually say no. "It's a free country," she said, trying to sound casual. He sat, and the entire restaurant seemed to disappear. There was only the two of them, a table, and a conversation that flowed like wine. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Running away," he admitted, his voice low. "Sometimes the house is too big and too quiet, and I needed to be somewhere else." "I know the feeling," she said. "Do you?" He looked at her, really looked at her. And she felt exposed. "Weston is beautiful," she said carefully, "but it's not alive." "No," he agreed. "It's not." The waiter came, and Nathaniel ordered another whiskey. They talked about everything and nothing, about Ohio and Massachusetts, about small towns and big cities, about dreams postponed and fears never spoken. He told her about Olivia, not the sanitized version, but the real one. How she hated mornings but loved sunsets. How she sang off-key in the shower. How she could make him laugh even when he was furious. How she'd wanted 3 more children, a dog, and a garden full of roses. "She sounds wonderful." Helena said. "She was," he said, his voice thick. "And I don't know how to be okay without her." Helena reached across the table and took his hand. It was an impulse, a gesture of comfort, but the moment their skin touched, something shifted. His hand was warm, strong. His fingers curled around hers and neither of them pulled away. "You don't have to be okay," she said softly. "You just have to keep going, one day at a time. Is that what you do?" "It's all I can do." They sat like that, hands joined for a long moment, and when the restaurant started to close, neither of them wanted the night to end. "Let me take you home," he said. "I can catch the train," she replied, but her voice lacked conviction. "I know you can, but I'd like to take you." And she said yes, not because she needed to, but because she wanted to. His car was everything she expected, expensive, silent, smelling of leather and his cologne. The seats were heated, warming her cold skin. Classical music played softly on. The radio Chopin, she thought. Something melancholy and beautiful. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was charged. "Can I ask you a question?" he said, his eyes on the road. "The truth, not the answer you gave me at the interview. Why did you take this job?" Helena took a deep breath. "Because 6 months ago I was supposed to get married. I had the dress, the church, the future all planned out. My mother had flown in from Portugal. My best friend was my maid of honor. 200 guests, a honeymoon in Greece. She paused, the memory still sharp. And then, 6 hours before the ceremony, Derek, my fiancé, sent a text. Not even a call, a text, 2 words. I can't, sorry. He left town, changed his number, disappeared. Nathaniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I stood there in my wedding dress, in front of 200 people, and had to tell them there would be no wedding. I've never felt so small, so worthless. You're not worthless, Nathaniel said, his voice fierce. I know that now, she said. But then, I believed it. I needed to get away, somewhere no one would look at me with pity, somewhere I could be useful. Again? He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, he was an idiot. She laughed, surprised. Any man who lets you go is an idiot, he repeated, and there was an intensity in his voice that made her heart stop. He cleared his throat. Sorry, that was inappropriate. No, it wasn't, she said softly. It was honest, and I'm tired of people not being honest with me. When they arrived at the mansion, the snow had started to fall again, light and silent, creating a private world, just for them. He turned off the engine, but neither of them moved. Thanks for tonight, she said, for seeing me. Not as the nanny, but as Helena. I should be thanking you, he said. For the first time in 18 months, I didn't feel alone. They looked at each other, and for a crazy, impossible second, she thought he was going to kiss her. She saw him lean in slightly, saw his eyes drop to her lips. Her heart raced. The air thickened. She could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. But then he pulled back, as if remembering something. Good night, Helena. Good night, Nathaniel. She got out of the car, her legs trembling. That night, neither of them slept well, because they both knew something had changed, and there was no turning back. In the days that followed, the dynamic shifted. Nathaniel started coming home earlier, just 15 minutes at first, then 30, then an hour. He spent that time at the playroom door, watching Helena and Grace. She could feel his gaze on her back, a warm, heavy presence. One evening, he didn't just watch, he came in. May I? He asked, gesturing to the floor. Helena nodded, surprised. He sat cross-legged on the carpet, his expensive suit looking absurd against the scattered toys. Grace looked at him, uncertain. She'd gotten used to Helena, but her father was still a stranger. Hey, sweetheart, he said softly, his voice gentle in a way Helena had never heard. Grace crawled closer, curious. She grabbed his tie and pulled. He laughed, a real, genuine laugh that transformed his entire face, and Helena's heart did something strange in her chest. She's strong, he said, gently untangling his tie from Grace's grip. She is, Helena agreed. She gets that from you. Or from her mother, he said, and there was no sadness in his voice, just fondness. They played together, building blocks, stacking, rings, peekaboo. And for the first time since Olivia died, Nathaniel looked happy. When Grace finally fell asleep in his arms, he looked down at her with such tenderness that Helena had to look away. It felt too intimate, too private. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For giving her back to me. I was so afraid of feeling, of hurting, that I stopped being her father. But you showed me it's okay to try again. You're a good father, Helena said. I'm trying to be. Their eyes met, and the air between them crackled with something unspoken. Helena, But before he could finish, his phone rang. Work, always work. He sighed, answered, and the moment was gone. But Helena knew. Something was building between them. Something dangerous and wonderful and terrifying, and she didn't know if she was ready for it. A week later, Grace got sick. Not dangerously, just a cold, but it was enough to keep her up all night, coughing and crying. Helena and Nathaniel took shifts. She'd stay with Grace until midnight. He'd take over until dawn. On the third night, exhausted and delirious, they both fell asleep in Grace's room, Helena in the rocking chair, Nathaniel on the floor, his back against the wall. When Helena woke, the sun was streaming through the window. Grace was asleep in her crib, breathing peacefully, and Nathaniel was watching her, not Grace, her. Good morning, he said softly. Morning, she replied, her voice hoarse. You talk in your sleep, he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. I do not. You do. You said something in Portuguese, and then you said my name. Her cheeks flushed. Don't remember. It's okay, he said, standing and offering her his hand. Come on, Mrs. Doyle made coffee. She took his hand and he pulled her up. For a moment they stood there, too close, hands still joined. "Nathaniel," she whispered. "Helena," he replied. And then, as if pulled by an invisible force, he leaned down. His lips brushed hers. Soft, tentative. A question, not a demand. She answered by kissing him back. It was gentle, sweet, nothing like the desperate kiss that would come later. This was a beginning. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. "I shouldn't have done that," he said, but he didn't sound sorry. "No," she agreed. "You shouldn't have, but I'm not sorry. Neither am I." They stood there, foreheads touching, the morning light painting them gold, and for the first time in months both felt something they thought they'd never feel again. Hope. But hope is a fragile thing, and fear is stronger. The next day, Nathaniel was gone again, not physically but emotionally. The walls were back up, the distance restored. When Helena tried to talk to him, he looked away. "About yesterday," she started. "It was a mistake," he said, his voice flat. The words hit her like a physical blow. "A mistake? I was tired, emotional. It shouldn't have happened." "But it did happen," she said, her voice rising. "You kissed me, and I kissed you back. And now you're running." "I'm not running." "Yes, you are. Because you're scared. Because you think loving someone again means betraying Olivia." His jaw tightened. "Don't talk about her." "Why not? She was real. She was important. But she's gone, Nathaniel. And you're still here. And so am I." "You don't understand." "Then explain it to me." He finally looked at her, and the pain in his eyes was so raw it took her breath away. "I promised her," he said, his voice breaking. "On our wedding day. I promised it would be only her, forever. And now I'm breaking that promise." "You're not," Helena said, tears streaming down her face. "You were faithful to her until her last breath, but she's not here, and you deserve to be happy again. Grace deserves a father who isn't just a shadow." "I don't know how," he whispered. "Then learn," she said, her voice hardening. "But don't ask me to wait while you decide if I'm worth the risk." She walked away, leaving him alone in the hallway, and neither of them knew if they could come back from this. 3 days later, Helena got a call. A Montessori school in Providence, a teaching position, a fresh start, an escape. She accepted the job. She told Mrs. Doyle first. The housekeeper, who rarely showed emotion, put a hand on Helena's shoulder. "He's a fool," she said softly. "But he's a scared fool, and fear makes people do terrible things." "I can't wait for him to stop being afraid," Helena said, her voice breaking. "I have to live my life." "I know, dear. You're doing the right thing." Telling Nathaniel was harder. She found him in his office, hidden behind a wall of work. "I got a job offer," she said, her voice steady. "In Providence. I'm taking it." He looked up. For a split second, she saw pure panic in his eyes. But then the mask was back. "Congratulations," he said, his voice neutral. "It's a great opportunity." She waited, hoped, prayed he would say something, anything. Ask her to stay, fight for her. But he said nothing. "I leave in 2 weeks," she said, her heart shattering. "I'll find a replacement for Grace." "Thank you," he said, and turned back to his computer, as if she meant nothing, as if the past months meant nothing. And Helena realized that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes fear wins. That night, Nathaniel was alone in his room, staring at a photo of Olivia, and for the first time he spoke to her not with love but with anger. "I'm trapped," he said to the smiling face, "trapped between you and a life I could have. I don't know how to let you go without feeling like I'm betraying everything we had." The photo didn't answer, and in the crushing silence Nathaniel realized he was asking permission from a ghost. He was choosing a memory over a living, breathing woman who loved him. He was losing the only chance he had to be happy again, but realizing it wasn't the same as acting on it, and the fear, the terrible fear of betraying Olivia's memory, was still stronger than the love he felt for Helena. So he did nothing. And sometimes, doing nothing is the worst choice of all. The day of her departure came with a silent cruelty. No drama, no storm, just a grey sky and a goodbye that neither of them wanted, but both had accepted. Helena said goodbye to Grace, breathing in the sweet baby smell and letting the tears fall. "You're going to be an amazing girl," she whispered. "And your dad, he'll learn to be happy again, I promise." Mrs. Doyle hugged her, something the housekeeper had never done before. "You brought life back to this house," she said. "Don't forget that." Nathaniel wasn't there. He had left for a meeting early, and Helena told herself it was for the best. Goodbyes were easier when there was no one to say goodbye to. The taxi arrived. She put her bag in the trunk, looked at the mansion one last time, and left. Nathaniel was in a meeting, an important meeting with investors who could make or break the next quarter. Numbers were being discussed. Projections, risks, but he couldn't focus. The words were noise, the numbers were meaningless. The only thing he could think about was Helena, leaving. Her train left at 11:30. He looked at the clock, 10:45. There was still time. But time for what? To say what? That he was a coward, that he was scared, that he loved her but didn't know how to let go of the past. And then, the CEO next to him made a joke about seizing opportunities before they're gone. And Nathaniel realized, with a clarity that took his breath away, that he was about to lose the most important opportunity of his life. He stood up abruptly. "Excuse me," he said. "I have to go. But the meeting, it doesn't matter." And for the first time in 18 months, something mattered more than work, more than money, more than fear. He ran. Boston was chaos. Traffic, lights, pedestrians. Every second was torture. He looked at the clock. 11:15, 15 minutes. His heart pounded so loud he could hear it. Over the engine. His hands gripped the wheel so tight his knuckles were white. He abandoned the car in a no-parking zone, ran into the station, pushed through the crowds, and finally, he saw her. Platform 5. Ticket in hand. The train was arriving. Helena! She turned and saw him running desperate. He reached her, panting. "I love you, Helena," he gasped out. "I love you in a way that scares me because it's not like what I felt for Olivia. It's different, it's new. And for weeks I thought that meant I was betraying her, but I'm not. I'm honoring her because she would have wanted me to be happy. And you make me happy." "You took your time," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I did," he admitted, "but I made it." He knelt right there in the middle of the station, with hundreds of people watching. "I don't have a ring, I don't have a speech. I just have this. I love you, and I want you to come back, not as a nanny, but as Helena, as the woman I love, as the woman I want to build a life with." The train whistled. The doors opened. People began to board. Helena looked at the train, then at Nathaniel, and for the first time in months, she knew exactly what she wanted. "Stand up," she said. He stood, fear in his eyes. She dropped the ticket, let it fall to the ground, and threw herself into his arms. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'm coming back, but on one condition. Anything. Never run away again. When you're scared, talk to me. When the past haunts you, let me be there, because we're a team, and teams don't abandon each other. I promise," he said. And there in the middle of South Station, with the train leaving without her, he kissed her. A kiss that said everything. Words couldn't. A kiss of promise, of new beginnings, of a love that had survived fear. Coming home felt like breathing for the first time in months. The mansion, once a cold mausoleum, was now a home, because a home isn't made of stone and glass. It's made of love and of people who choose to stay. Mrs. Doyle greeted them with a rare smile. "Welcome home," she said. Grace, hearing Helena's voice, shouted with joy and ran into her arms. Nathaniel looked at them, his heart so full it ached. "This is my family," he said. "You are my family." The days that followed weren't a fairy tale. They were real. Messy, hard Nathaniel started therapy. Every Tuesday, he sat across from a psychologist and talked about Olivia, about guilt, about fear, about learning to let go without forgetting. Helena went back to school online. She took courses, prepared to teach again, because she hadn't given up on her dreams, just postponed them. They learned to communicate, to fight, to make peace. They discovered that adult love isn't perfect. It's work, but it's work worth doing. A year later, in the spring, Nathaniel asked the question he'd been rehearsing for months. It wasn't on a beach, it wasn't in a restaurant. It was in the garden with Grace playing at their feet, with tulips blooming all around. "Marry me," he said. Helena laughed. "You're no good at romantic proposals." "I'm good at loving you," he said, "and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that." "Then yes," she said, 1,000 times yes. "And if you've made it this far, I want you to know one thing. Love isn't perfect. People aren't perfect. But sometimes two imperfect people meet at the right time and decide that together they're enough." Helena and Nathaniel didn't have a fairy tale ending. They had something better, a real beginning. It's never too late to start over. It's never too late to choose courage over fear, and never ever too late to run after someone before the train leaves. Because in the end, it's not the trains we miss that define us. It's the ones we catch, the people we choose to run for, the loves we decide to fight for. Thank you for walking with us through the snow, through fear, and through love. May your own story be as brave as theirs.